Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Larry the Batman fan. I'm back with another video. So this video today, oh by the way, I just wanted to say I do have a cold. So probably in this video, you may hear me blow my nose a bit. So hopefully y'all are not like super bothered by that. I can't really help it. I got a cold recently and I'm throwing that out there that I might have to blow my nose from time to time because I do have a cold. Um, so a while back, I got a comment from Jackal Goldkick saying, "What were the worst PS2 games I ever played?" Now, a year ago, I did a video talking about the best PS2 games, and you should know my thoughts on the best PS2 games if you saw that video. But if not, I'll just elaborate a little bit. Devil May Cry 1 and 3. I personally didn't hate Devil May Cry 2. I know it gets a lot of hate, but I didn't mind it. Hold on a second. Probably in here. Sorry. Just was looking for this to clean my glasses here. But I didn't mind Devil May Cry 2, to be honest. I didn't think it was a terrible game. Some collectors and gamers think that game stinks. Personally, I didn't think it was that bad. So, that one goes in the mid tier. That's definitely not in the horrific, or that it really sucks. It's not that bad. So it's a decent game. Devil May Cry 2. Crash Bandicoot, The Wrath of Cortex, Crash Nitro Kart, Crash Twin Sanity, Resident Evil 4, Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. You could really like just about any Tony Hawk game up to like Project 8, and then after that, the series went downhill from there. But before that, Tony Hawk was pretty awesome for a sports game. Tekken 4 and Tekken 5. Max Payne 2, and Final Fantasy 10. And you got to put Ratchet and Clank on the list. It's just a must. Even though Ratchet and Clank got very repetitive and stale, it's a must. It really is. And Sly Cooper. Sly Cooper is definitely a must in my opinion. And when it comes to shooter games, it goes Killzone, 007 Nightfire, 007 Agent Under Fire, Project Snowblind, and Cold Winter. Those are the top 5 for me. I know Call of Duty would probably be up there and Medal of Honor in some people's list, but in my top 5 shooting games on the PS2, those are the top 5 for me. I know there's also Red Faction and Red Faction 2, and it was Urban Chaos Riot Response. That's another shooting game on the PS2. But those are just a few examples of some good games on the PS2, But we're not talking about really any of that today. We're talking about the worst PS2 games that I played. So I'm here to answer Jackal Goldkick's requests and all the fans that are watching these videos. So, for me, I think the worst game I ever played on the PS2, the number one worst PS2 game, it's probably Bad Boys Miami Takedown. It was a licensed game based off the second film, I believe, or the first film. I think it was the second film because the first film came out in the 90s. The second film didn't come out till like 2000 or something, 2001. So they tried to capitalize on the Bad Boys franchise, but the game is terrible. The reason why the game is terrible, the controls suck. Like shooting your gun up goes down and down goes up. You know what I mean? Up, down, down, up. It was inverted. It was like Turok. Although Turok for the N64 was a good game, despite the inverted controls, which was annoying. But this game is not good. I mean, they made Martin Lawrence look like Will Smith, and Will Smith look like Martin Lawrence. That just is bad. Some of the dialogue in the game is really stupid. They tried to add corny jokes in there to make it a fun game when it's not a fun game. The cover mechanics in the game is broken. You go behind cover, try to go out for like 4 or 5 seconds, and you get shot at. But when them try to shoot them, and you miss because of that cover system being sucky. You know, a good cover system, like let's say for instance, like Call of Duty, you know, or Gears of War. Gears of War is a better example for a third-person shooter because Bad Boys Miami Takedown was basically a third-person shooter. So Gears of War, when you get in cover, you get in cover. Then when you come out of cover and you're shooting, you can either shoot while in cover, so you shoot over your head, like that with your AK-47, or you stand up and you shoot like this. But it works. Bad Boys Miami Takedown, you're behind a wall, you're trying to shoot them, and you never can really hit them. I mean, you can, but not without being shot at, you know, and that's just sucky. It's a sucky game, terrible game. You know, the mechanics in the game sucked. The controls were inverted. The up aiming goes down and the down goes up. Just wrong. Just bad. So, I mean, I like the movie Bad Boys 2 and Bad Boys 3. Yeah, not Bad Boys for Life. I'm calling it Bad Boys 3. But the game was terrible. Not a good game. Number 2 on the list has to be ESPN Winter Olympics X Games. Snowboarding. Or Winter X Games Snowboarding. Or however the fuck you say the title. I don't know. It's a long title. It was a bad title for the game. Just call it Winter X Snowboarding or some shit. That was a bad snowboarding game on PS2. Now, this is pretty obvious. I'm sure you guys know that I would choose these games because I played them. I did mention them in Jeff Goldkick's the collab videos that we did. Just bear with me. So, yeah, that game is bad because the snowboarding in the game just really isn't that fun. Terrible draw distance in the game. None of the characters are really interesting in that game. You know, it just wasn't good. It didn't have enough heart to it, you know. Unlike SSX, which was actually a much better snowboarding game, and the Cool Boarders games. Those were good too for snowboarding games. This snowboarding game was lifeless. Just came and went, you know. I forget who made this game, if it was Konami or not, but it just sucked. It was not a good snowboarding game. I definitely do not recommend that. Number 3 has to be this game right here. I'm going to show you guys. It was probably the worst shooting game I ever played on the PS2, and a third-person shooter at that. It's Trigger Man. I got this game off of Matthew when he was still selling games. Got a loose disc for about $9. This is not worth $9. Even in the original case, the cover art for about $9 would be bullshit. I mean, this is laughably bad. The reason why this game is so bad... Hold on a second. Sorry. Sorry about that. The reason why this game's bad is because the AI in the game sucks. They don't know, like, they kind of swerve in your direction. You know what I mean? To move around and everything. The AI, it's just bad. Like, they go up and down, like, There's a part in this game literally where you're behind cover as the trigger man, and there are these security guards that are trying to shoot at you, but their aiming is terrible. Well, actually, their aiming in some parts of the game is better than others, but their aiming, when they aim at you and stuff, they usually hit you. But when you shoot at them, you don't always hit them, so it's bad hit detection in the game. Uh, Honestly, I don't understand why it takes so many hits just to kill a security guard in this game. It makes no sense. It's terrible, you know? Um, you're better off knifing them, but at that point, it becomes more of a stealth game, and it just doesn't work that well. And plus, when you knife them, there's other guys usually around that shoot at you while you're knifing that one guy, so you end up dead anyways. So what's the point of stealth in this game? What's the point of knifing people? This sucks. That's trash. This is trash. Um, what else can I say about this game? Uh, well, I didn't really like the fact that this game came out in 2004, and there were other games at the time that had voiceover in games. SpongeBob, Battle for Bikini Bottom, Sly Cooper, and the Thievius Raccoonus, Jack and Daxter 2, or Jack 2 as it's called. Ratchet and Clank. The first Ratchet and Clank game came out before this game. It came out in 2002. So if that game had a voiceover in it, why the hell didn't this? This is from 2004. They just had a bunch of text that you had to read and you could see their mouths moving, but you could never hear anything. Like, Crave was just a bunch of cheap bastards that didn't want to put out quality. They put out crap. The only good games that I know Crave made were the Snowcross games. Those were all right. But other than that, like, the majority of games that they put out on their machine, PS2, GameCube, Xbox, they suck. And this was no exception. That was a poor excuse. You know what I mean? Like, I understand if this was a PS1 game, but this was a PS2 game. And Xbox and GameCube. I think they're all identical. No voiceover in this game whatsoever. Just dialogue while their mouths are moving. Like, and then, I have to look at the text on the screen to see what is going on with the story. Like, wow, that's pathetic. Terrible game. Number 4 has to be Hidden Invasion. This game right here. I hate this game. The reason this game sucks is because it was trying to be like a third-person shooter action game mixed with Final Fight. And it just sucks. It sucks bad. I mean, you play as a cop in this game from what I remember. You go through the levels. You got a time limit in the game, which is no good. I mean, why would you want a time limit in this game where you get to beat people up and shoot some people, but you still have a time limit too? And if you don't get through the entire level in the time limit, you go all the way back to the beginning of the level. And that sucks. There's no checkpoints in this game unless you get through the entire level. I thought that was terrible. As I remember, this game didn't even save on my memory card. That's how fucking sucky this game is. Most games when you put a memory card in the PS2 and you play this, you save it while playing the game or getting ready to play the game, it'll save it. New save, hit the X button, start saving. Okay, we're overwriting it. It says it on the TV screen. This, it says that, but it doesn't save any of your progress. Sucks. Okay? I mean, the beating up the people on the streets, that was okay. That wasn't bad. It didn't seem like it was impossible to punch people and things like that. But overall, this game wasn't very good. I mean, if they had had no time limit in this game, it might have been a better game. I might have been able to get through this game and beat this game. But because of that, it cannot escape my list. It has to be on the list. Sucks. The number 5, I have somewhere in my room here. I'm not quite sure where it is, but I have shown it before. Booger Boy Meister talked about the game, and I'm here to talk about it too. It's number 5. It's McFarlane's Evil Prophecy. Yes, this game was bad. The reason the game's bad is because it was like the same shit with like Trigger Man was with this game too, and I think this game came out in 2003 or 2004 as well. Hold on. It's bad because it's like for like 20 minutes you're there in this house with these 3 or 4 other people. They don't really appreciate you. They're contemplating on if they should go kill the monsters in the game, or if they should just stay there in the house and do nothing. So between the 4 or 5 characters in the beginning of the game, they're constantly bickering, trying to figure out if they should go fight the werewolves or not, or the monsters in the game. I think they are werewolves. But once you finally do get out there and you're traveling, the graphics look terrible for a PS2 game. Pathetic. They could have looked a lot better. I mean, I've seen games from Crash Bandicoot that look more better than that. SpongeBob the Battle for Bikini Bottom on PS2 looked better than that. Sonic Heroes, the graphics look good in that. Resident Evil 4. So if there were games around the same time, 2004 and 2005, why didn't the graphics look good in this game? They look terrible. They look awful. No excuse. And then when you start, screwing around a bit, going through the levels, get to this one spot, you hear the sound of werewolves, a little bit of dialogue between them. Guys, I think we should turn back now. No, we can't turn back now. It's time for us to fight these things. I'm scared. So it's like half the crew is scared, and half of them isn't. And then when you start fighting the monsters, you kill the monsters, you kill the monsters, you kill the monsters, and then you go to this guy who's supposed to open up the gate for you, and he tells you you need to kill more monsters. So then you go all the way through the level again, and you kill all the monsters till they're all dead, and sometimes the people that are with you, they just stand there like this, and they don't even bother to help you defeat the monsters in the game. So you're killing them with your axe or your sword or whatever, or you're just punching them, beating the hell out of them, and they're just standing there doing nothing. Nothing. They don't even help you. Some parts of the game they do help you, and other parts they just stand there. Pathetic. That team should be fired. Honestly. And then when you go all the way back to the gate, you get all the way back over there after having to look at that teeny tiny map on the screen and try to figure out where the hell you are. Excuse me, just to get back over there. And when you get back over there, guess what happens? He says, I can't let you through yet, guys. You need to kill the monsters. So you're like, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. And then you go all the way back to see if any more monsters are there. You find a few more monsters, you kill them, and then you go back, and then you finally get through the gate. It is just annoying. It took over an hour just to get back over there. Backtracking. I hate backtracking in games. I had to backtrack like 3 times. And it took a while for me to get back to that spot just to get over there and talk to the guy again to open up the gate and let me through to the next part of the game. It's like, I want to see more of the game. Konami did a bad job with this game too. There's no voice, talk over, It's basically them moving their mouths and then there's text that you have to read down below on the TV screen. Pathetic. Trigger Man did the same thing, and I don't understand why when there were other games capable of having voiceovers where they could speak with their mouths moving at the same time without having you to read some dialogue. I understand reading dialogue when it's like, well, move this way and then press the X button. Move that way and then press the triangle button. That makes sense because it's trying to direct you in the right spot. But what doesn't make sense is not having voiceover in games when it's a fucking PS2 game. Makes no sense. So that game sucks. Alright, so now, what else can I name that's really bad? This isn't a licensed game, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I liked, the older ones on N64, Sarge's Heroes and Sarge's Heroes 2. And I liked the Army Men game that was on, Game Boy Color. That was fun. I know they also had Air Attack. I wasn't a big fan of Air Attack, but I did like the original. I think there was one other Army Men game on the PS2, but it was actually there were three. Only one that was good was Sarge's War. That one was pretty good, but this one and Soldier's Misfortune, they suck. Army Men Green Rogue, the last T for Teen Army Men game before they went rated E for some reason. This game sucks because you don't get to control your guy, and it's like the level kind of forces you forward. I know Super Mario Bros. 3 had one or two levels where the level sort of side-scroll and you had to move to the right, but it didn't seem annoying like it does in this. Also, I didn't like the, I just didn't like that it was on rails. Like, it shouldn't have been on rails at all, you know? It had no need to be on rails. Like, this is not supposed to be on rails. It's supposed to be a third-person shooter in an Army Man world. It failed. It sucked. It was not good. Number 7 has to be Star Trek Voyager Elite Force. That game was abysmal. I got that game off of a guy I know. I'll say his first name, Dennis. He sold me a PS2 a long while back. Or a while back, like 2013 or something. With 9 games, and that was one of the games that was in there. The game sucked because it was like a first-person shooter in the Star Trek franchise. Very first part of the game was easy. Just find a control panel, open up the door, and go through. Easy. When you get through that first part of the game, it's okay. It seems alright. The shooting going up is just weird. It's like very sensitive. It's like, oh, shoot. You think it would normally move up normally, like it would in Call of Duty. When you move it down, it's like the slightest movement on the controller, like this goes, just spikes your gun like up like that. I'm like, whoa, what the hell's going on here? Like, that's crazy. Call of Duty, move the gun up to aim, moves up slowly. Perfect. That's the way it should be. This, very sensitive. It's like, or, no, just doesn't work. And plus, the robots in the game that you encounter later on, don't bother to try and shoot them. Just run past them, because they will kill you in the game. Like, I tried so many times to kill all those robots. They kept coming through that door, and before you know it, I'm dead. The game was awful. If you look it up on Google, what the worst PS2 shooting games are, I can guarantee you Star Trek Voyager Elite Force and Trigger Man and Fugitive Hunter go up there on the worst list. Fugitive Hunter is not on my list because I've never played it, but those two definitely had to mention. Star Trek, honestly, I don't think they've ever made a good Star Trek game. They've made some on the Sega Genesis And Super Nintendo, I don't know if any of those were good. I know the one on NES sucks. The Angry Video Game Nerd reviewed that. It sucks. Then there was Star Trek for, I think, PS1. They might have had a PS1 game. Oh, no. No, it's a PS3 game called Star Trek. That game I heard wasn't very good. And then this one, that was on PS2. Terrible. Awful first person shooter. So at number 8, now we're getting into some of the licensed games. Because these licensed games are terrible. Well, actually, I have a couple here that aren't licensed. But I'll just show everybody what we got. We got the Cat in the Hat. Bad game. Shark Tale. Finding Nemo. Arthur and the Invisibles. Chicken Little, which out of all of them, in my honest opinion, Chicken Little is a bit more serviceable than those other ones. Those other ones are terrible. This one's playable, but it isn't a great game. And I know there was a few others like the Italian Job. I'm not putting that on my list because I think it's a mid-tier game. I don't think it's horrible. But it wasn't a great game. You know, there was only a few good licensed games on the PS2. King Kong, Batman Begins. You know, Cars was a good game on the PS2. I thought that was good. Yeah, there's a few others like Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man. Those are good too. But a lot of them suck, in my honest opinion. Those are just no exception. So, yeah, they all had their problems as far as like control wise, jumping mechanics, fighting mechanics, all those sort of things. You know, so that's why they're all on the list here for bad PS2 games. The next game I have is Top Gun Combat Zones. This is terrible. This was a bad flight simulator game. It's made by Titus. Titus is no longer around because they were one of the worst video game publishers of all time. Like, they were the bastards that created Superman 64. So that's how you know. If you see Titus on the game disc, or you see LJN on a cartridge, do not buy it because it normally sucks. 98% of the time, it's going to be a shitty game and not worth your time. So this was a bad flight simulator game. I understand Ace Combat. I'm not a fan of flight simulator games, so I might be biased. But I know that Ace Combat is at least playable. This is not playable. This is terrible. This was an awful game. I see Joey from DK Oldies giving this away as a free copy. Like, oh, we'll throw the game into your order. And he throws this in. I'm like, why? This game sucks. He's always talking about, oh, well, it's got to be a good one. Throwing God of War in somebody's order, spend like $400. Throwing Devil May Cry if someone spends like $500. But then if I only spend like $200 on like a PS2 and like 3 games with a memory card as well, he throws in a shit game like this. Makes no sense. Another game I gotta say sucks is this racing game right here, Crazy Frog. This is bad. This is like a shitty version of Mario Kart. Very bad. Up there with Eminem's Go-Kart Racing. There are many games that are trying to duplicate or replicate what Mario Kart does. But Mario Kart does it well when it comes to video games. But when it comes to this is a piece of garbage. Like, this is a bad racing game. It sucks. I mean, there's nothing special about the power-ups in the game. The driving is okay in the game, I guess. But Crazy Frog's annoying. And all the characters, they don't stand out. They're not like Mario characters like Luigi, Peach, Toad, and Bowser, and Wario. and Donkey Kong, you know, so they don't stand out at all. None of the characters are appealing, you know. This just wasn't a fun racing game. It's really bad. I do not recommend that. And then we have Thrillville. And some people will probably be mad that I put this on the list, but I honestly don't care because it's bad. You play as like this park editor, like a park manager. You play as a man or a woman, whichever you choose. And you go through the levels building parks. And then you have kids that come by and they ask you a bunch of questions about the park. They ask you questions like, who are you? You tell them you're the park manager. You know, why is the ride not working? Some of the kids ask you stupid questions in this game. Some of the mini games in here aren't really that fun either. They're not like Mario Party where it's fun. You know, some of the mini games have you ride a roller coaster, which would seem like fun, but it's really not that fun. It's very complicated, you know, to play. It's just not a good game overall. It's really bad. Controls not good. The gameplay is just not that fun. I'll admit it is pretty cool though to create your own like theme park and then have people come to your theme park. You know, you do eventually hire people to work for you to make sure that they run well and things like that, but it takes a lot of patience. I didn't get that far in this game to when I shut it off because I was bored by the game. I didn't find it a very good game. They did put this on the Wii. I think the second game, Off the Rails, was on the Wii, but it was also on the PS2. Never played that one. I only played the first one here, so I can't really say if the second one sucks as well. But this one, I definitely was not a fan of. It had some interesting ideas, but ultimately, I still feel that it could have been a better game overall. But is this the worst PS2 game? I'd say it's bad, but the other games that I mentioned before this are much worse than this, honestly. And the last game that I want to mention for the list here is Robin Hood, Defender of the Crown. That game is horrendous. Terrible controls, terrible gameplay, bad graphics. Just nothing about that game stands out. If you look up gameplay, you'll see what I mean. Robin Hood's a cool guy. You know, his movies were pretty cool with Kevin Costner and what's that other guy? Russell Crowe. I thought he did a good job as Robin Hood. Joel Egerton, I wasn't a big fan of his Robin Hood rendition, but I did like Russell Crowe and Kevin Costner as Robin Hood. You know, but as far as the game goes, it was not good. It was bad, really bad. I mean, poor controls, poor gameplay, terrible graphics, mediocre storyline for the game. Ultimately, fails. Bad game. Do not buy any of these games. Stay away from them. They stink. You know, I think Thrillville was probably the most tolerable out of all of them. But even then, that game's not really that great. So that's just my opinions on the worst PS2 games. I would love to know what people think of the worst PS2 games. Please leave that in the comments section below. Thank you all for watching, and thank you, Jag Goldkick, for the request. I'm here to fulfill the request I just did. And, yeah, thank you for that. And, yeah, thank you guys for watching. Take care. Peace.